Folks, welcome back to another beautiful, incredible, and amazing episode of Papa Day. It's me, ya boy, the guy who loves to open Funko Pops every day, Max. I'm the guy who runs this channel, also known as Papa Day. And yeah, today we got two new boxes. So if you watched yesterday's episode, you know I was waiting for one, and then the other one just came all by itself. So figured, I could spread this out, milk it, or I could just tear into both of them and see what we got. So I'm in favor of opening them both. So let's get right into it. Now, I have a knife. You may have a knife. Doesn't mean you should use a knife. So if you need help with a knife, ask an adult. If you are an adult who needs help, there's no shame in asking. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Now, this new one, first one, is from Mercari. And this one, I think this is the one from Mercari. And I love Spider-Man, and I'm trying to get a bunch of Spider-Man. Probably not all the Spider-Mans, because that's an awful lot of Spider-Mans to have, but this is one that I think is iconic. So I had to make it happen. I forgot to cut one of these corners. You know what they say, don't cut corners, except when you literally have to. Okay, so packaging wasn't amazing. Small mailer. It was in good condition with one layer of bubble wrap. Nothing crazy. But it's what's inside that counts. This here is I want to say this is a Walgreens exclusive, but this is the SpiderMan 2099. One of the more iconic Spider-Man designs, I think. Even though the 2099, so if you don't know, the 2099 series is a series of comics that came out in the 90s. And the 90s was all full of edgy and crazy stories and more, futuristic stories. So Marvel did their own series that was all their most famous heroes, X-Men, Iron Man, and Spidey, and a bunch of others like Punisher and stuff. But in the distant, far-off future of 2099, which, in the 90s seemed very far away, but as we're getting older, it seems like it's not that far away. So the fantastical future world. I believe the name of this particular Spider-Man is Miguel O'Hara, or O'Hara, I don't know. And yeah, he's from the future, and I think his origin's a little bit different, but he still has some of the same villains, even though they're not the same exact people. But it's, a familiar story with a new, also, I want to say he's Hispanic, which is cool. I think he was the first Hispanic Spider-Man. So that's awesome. I always loved the design as a kid. If you've played any Spider-Man games, this is always one of the costumes you can unlock, and for good reason. It's very cool and unique and doesn't look like a lot of other Spider-Man outfits because it has kind of the inverse color scheme, plus his eyes have this kind of awesome like hook shape instead of the standard like, it still looks Spider-Man enough. You might be able to guess that it's Spider-Man, but he has such a different look. Such a cool. So I had to get this pop, and he'll fit in right with all these other Spider-Mans I have. So I'll have to figure out a good spot for him. Now, that's the first one from Mercari. Beautiful, lovely, came in great condition. What more can you ask for? Well, maybe you ask for another pop. Ask and you shall receive. Hop right in there as my neighbor kids yelling loudly. Wonder if that's getting picked up. I leave the door open sometimes for my dog. He loves to stare out the window, but if you hear some kids screaming, that's what's going on. All right, so this one is from Amazon. And right off the bat, I can tell the packaging's a little bit better. It's got little bubble guys for you. And on top of those little bubble guys, it looks like it's in a plastic bag, also covered in more bubble wrap. So try to get this open without damaging the box. Always kind of a challenge. There we go. It looks like it's in great condition, so beautiful. All right, and there he is. Box is looking pretty good. Now, this is from a series called FLCL, or Fully Cooley. Now, Fully Cooley is an anime that came out in the early to mid 2000s one of my personal favorites. As a kid, I always loved this show, and as I've gotten older, I still go back to it, and it still holds up. This is the main character, Nauta, and he, as you can see, got a little bandage on his head. That is part of the story. I do recommend you check out the series. I love it dearly. Now I'm working on the other characters in the set as well. I have Mamimi and Kanti. I got those at cost from the Entertainment Earth site, and they're back ordered, but they're coming. So I paid the normal price for them, which felt great. Nauta only costs about $25. Honestly, I can see why the box isn't perfect. There's a little tiny little crease in the corner, and on this side it's kind of bulging out. But honestly, at a glance, it looks great. So I cannot complain really about the quality of the box because for my purposes, as this just being a character I love, and I don't think I'll ever part with these pops. So specifically like Cowboy Bebop and this one and Spider-Man ones, they've always resonated with me. I love this series, and there's really not a lot of merch. I have the soundtrack, which, by the way, if you've never listened to the soundtrack, it's by a great Japanese punk band that's called The Pillows. Kind of sounds like Japanese Weezer or something like that, if it kind of gives you an idea of like an alt rock band from Japan from the late 90s, mid 2000s. So, very great, nostalgic character for me. Very great series, and I'm working on the set. There's only 4 characters in this set, so this should be an easy one to complete. I have them all in order, including the very last one, which is Haruko, which is the hardest one to find, and she's only a little bit more expensive, like 30, $40. But you know what? For a set of a show that I've loved for a long time, it's really nothing. So that is today's haul on Pop Day. We got the Spider-Man 2099 and the Fully Cooley Nauta. I love both of these. Those are really good in my opinion. Yeah, those are just, very nostalgic from different times in my life. As a kid, I grew up reading the 2099 comics. And then as a teenager, I really loved all the shows on Adult Swim. So if you haven't watched Fully Cooley, I highly recommend it. And if you haven't read any of the 2099 comics or played any of the video games where they explore his backstory, I do recommend checking it out because he's a very interesting character. He's not just the same Spider-Man in a new outfit. So lots of cool stuff today. Thanks again for watching. I always say it, but I've got a lot of really cool stuff coming in the mail. More stuff like what we've seen here today. So if you liked the video, just completely like people's elbow, that sub button, just like spinning back kick the sub button, the like button, and then, if you really feel saucy, hit the Taco Bell, and you'll see more delicious videos like this all the time. So once again, thanks for watching. This has been Papa Day. My name is Max, and you just got popified.